Welcome back to Pride Matters, Salford Pride's official podcast, where we give a voice to communities in Salford and beyond. I'm Ricki, head of people, and today I'll be joined by Ewan, a singer, songwriter and producer from Salford and the winner of our Pink Picnic digital show back in June. Natalya Disley, an events management student, advocate for mental health and our very own expo officer, as well as Husk, a trans mask, non-binary musician and a volunteer for Salford Pride. We also have some extra special guests joining us on this episode of Pride Matters, so make sure to stay tuned for that extra special festive message. Hi Ewan, thank you for coming back to Pride Matters. How are you?
I'm great, thanks for having me.
For anyone that doesn't remember you from last time, Ewan, can you just tell us a little bit about who you are?
Yep, so I'm 20, I'm from Manchester. I mainly do like electro pop, a lot of acoustic stuff on my social media, and I'm a fashion student.
Today we're talking about the theme of community. And 2020 has obviously been a difficult year for many people for lots of different reasons. But we want to focus on the best bits of what's been a difficult year. So what are your personal highlights from the past year?
Started off really well, actually. The first song that I put out of the year in March, I think it was Electric Heart, reached my first 1,000 streams on Spotify, which doesn't sound a lot, but obviously when you're at my level, that's like great to achieve that. Like I've only been doing music a year, putting out music for a year, so that was great. Over the year I've put out, I think 3 songs now, maybe a fourth, maybe a fourth by the end of the year, we'll see. Obviously I've earned my spot at Salford Pride, which is unreal because that is exactly what I set out to do at the start of the year. My biggest goal was to get a Pride spot, and I did that, so that's great. And I've started working on my first music video, so for a shit year, it's actually all right. Yeah, it's been great, not gonna lie.
What would be your biggest achievement in this year?
Yeah, 100% getting that Pride spot, just because like live performance is just so much different. Like it's just the possibilities and like the exposure, it's just there's nothing like it. So 100% getting that spot means the world to me.
I feel like we need some like sad emotional
Yeah,
kind of TV media thing to play like they do on other talent show competitions. But for people that don't know, you took part in our online digital talent competition, Salford's Got Pride, back in June. And you obviously won, and by securing the most votes. You said it's a small target, but actually I think you've had over 4,000 streams now, haven't you, in total?
On one of my songs, yeah, I think it was not the last one. I think it was Hush, which I put out just before September, before I went back to uni. Yeah, that did really well. I think it's got like almost 5k streams, which is like unreal for me. I'm like, what? But yeah, I think out of all of them now, I think over Apple and Spotify, I think about like 11,000 or so in total, which is like amazing.
No, I think that's an amazing number of people. Like our biggest event, we got 5,500 people. How do you feel being part of the LGBT plus community at Christmas? Do you go home? Do you see your family?
Yeah, I've actually just come home a couple of weeks ago from Manchester. I was just saying to my mum earlier, actually, just in the car, I was like, it's so nice to be back. Like, I'm still working every day like a bloody dog, but it's just so nice. Just like even like just getting your meals cooked for you and getting your washing done. That's great.
I think that's something I definitely look forward to when I go and see my mum, just putting my clothes in a pile and letting my mum wash them. It's such a pain doing all those adult things yourself, isn't it? I can see as well you've got your keyboard and your little microphone behind you ready for some Ewan content.
No, I actually hardly use that piano. My laptop that I'm filming on right now is actually balanced on the keyboard that I use because it plugs directly into my laptop, so I can do everything on there.
Oh, that's cool.
That's just become like a decoration now in the background.
So people know you're a musician.
Yeah.
Look.
No, you know.
Along with your sort of music elements. I know you've been working on a project that you've already spoke to Salford now about, which is like a music video for one of your songs, isn't it?
The last song I put out, Dangerous, I had that done about a year and a half ago now. It's like crazy. It feels like I did it ages ago. But at the start of the year, I got approached on Instagram by two guys, Harrison and Jack. They'd been at my uni. One of them had just done a master's in dance and the other had just finished, I think it was media and performance or film and media or something along those lines. And they messaged me saying they'd seen a snippet of Dangerous at the start of the year on my Instagram. And they were like, do you want to do a music video for it? And I was like, yeah, bring it on. So there's been a lot of interruptions throughout the year. It's been kind of crap in that aspect, but you know, we're going to get it done. Probably not by the end of the year. Probably because we've all gone home now. It'll probably go into next year, but we've said we're going to get it done. It's going to be great. So 2021 is the year.
I think everybody is sort of coming now that we're coming to the end of 2020. You know, keeping our fingers and stuff crossed for a really exciting 2021. The music video, what's it about? Is there a theme between the music and the video, I guess?
You know, it kind of, we did the concept obviously after the song. I did the song, like say, a year ago. So that was, you know, I wrote that about something totally different. But we started, well, it was mainly Jackie started like conceptualizing around the song and, you know, stuff that's happened throughout the year. We were kind of, we always had this idea of black and white, you know, as cliche as that is. But we sort of swapped them because I think, you know, even just in like films or whatever, you know, that we're used to watching, it's like black's portrayed as evil, white's portrayed as good, you know, like heroic and all that. So it's like angelic versus devil kind of thing.
I presumed you were working on the project sort of throughout lockdown and stuff with not much happening, but in uni where obviously restrictions were less. So it must have been really nice to have a sort of collaborative project to work on to
Yeah.
sort of be busy throughout lockdown.
Yeah, 100%. Like even when we're all back home and stuff, we were on Instagram, like FaceTime, whatever, like every other week. So we could like have brainstorming sessions and talk it through so that as soon as we could rehearse again and be in person, like we could just say, right, let's just do this.
When your music video comes out, you said probably in January. Where will it be available? Where can people find it and ultimately watch it?
Well, obviously the song's already out, so that's on Spotify, Apple, Amazon Ds or whatever. But when the video's out, mainstream platform, YouTube probably, definitely. Yeah, that's probably the main one. We might put it elsewhere, even if it's on websites or if we're sending it off of festivals, which I think Jack's planning on doing. But yeah, I think YouTube, and everyone can access that. So
let's have a listen to Ewan's most recently released song, available on all streaming platforms, Dangerous.
You're playing with fire, you're gonna get burned. You're throwing yourself in a game so dangerous. I know you like to go under, you're adventurous, but you're committing to a path so dangerous.
Do you have anything else planned in the upcoming or near future? You've got your music coming out, maybe one or two songs, your music video. Is there anything else upcoming other than the Pink Picnic, which that a little while away in June, which we're all planning and keeping our fingers crossed for? But what else have you got going on?
Yeah, apart from that, you know, I'll be finishing uni next year. But in terms of music, I'm thinking I think I mentioned in the last call that we had, I wanted to do an EP in time for Pride so that I could perform that, because that would be perfect, you know, just like some fresh material to try out. So if I can get that done in time, that'd be great, but it just depends. I think it's nice because you sort of build like not even a concept, but it's just, you know, they all sort of relate to each other. I think when they're on an EP, they just feel a bit more, you know, together.
To have like most like what are they called, albums, tracks, whatever, have some kind of like theme, don't they, overall? Like sort of puts the songs together.
Yeah, I think the thing with like putting out singles, which is like what I've been doing, because obviously I've had the opportunity, I could have just saved all these songs and put them into an EP, But I think when you're putting out songs, you know, individually, you can sort of promote them and put your all into just one song and then do that for the next.
Yeah.
You know, I think at my stage, like, nobody's going to sit down and listen to a full album by somebody they don't even know. It's like, do you know what I mean? It's like one song, yeah, sure, we'll give you a chance, but if not, it's like, nah.
I mean, you say that, but like 10,000 people or so have been listening to your songs and stuff, so people
Maybe.
really do want to listen. On my personal Instagram, I said, you know, here's to a bigger, better and bolder 2021, because that's what I hope happened. It's our 10th year of running Salford Pride, because we started in 2011. It's a big year for us, so hopefully we'll be able to celebrate that. A lot of LGBT plus people aren't obviously able to go home or might be stuck away. What message would you like to say to someone who might be spending their festive season alone, or might be particularly like stressed or worried about going home with their family?
I just say, focus on yourself. Don't put yourself in uncomfortable positions. Try and be as happy as possible, and don't, you know, if somebody doesn't understand or somebody doesn't get it or whatever, then screw them. Be yourself. Don't go home if it's going to be shit, and drink a lot of gin and vodka.
I think that message of, you know, look after yourself, and if something's not going to be good for you, don't do it, is very important. I think that's really important. Thank you so much for joining us again and coming back on Pride Matters.
Pleasure, thank you.
As the winner of our digital competition, we will see lots more of you in June. Hi Natalia, thank you for joining us on Pride Matters. How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm so glad to be here. I'm good right now. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. Yeah, thank you for asking. Natalia, for anyone at home, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are?
Well, I'm a 22-year-old female currently living in Manchester, studying in Manchester Met. I'm studying events management. And yeah, I'm half Thai, half English. I've only just lived in Manchester/England for about 4 years now, hence why the weird accent. But yes, that's me right now.
Recently you joined Salford Pride and you're part of the events team.
That is Connor, who is also studying events management. That's how we actually met. And our friendship kind of just grew. And then he said, hey, I have just been promoted as event manager in Salford Pride. And there is a slot for you that screams your name with it. So he was like, would you like to join the team? I just went, of course I would, absolutely.
Thank you.
But I would have been dealing with all the stalls for a picnic in the park.
Natalia, we'll start off looking back at 2020. We know that 2020 has been difficult for many people, but let's focus on the best bits of your year. So what would you say your highlights from 2020 were?
You know, it probably is second year of university, being able to go into an actual student house, living with 10 people, even though we didn't get to experience the uni student life. I've been able to connect with my household more than I could ever do if it wasn't because of COVID and we had to stay in, and we made different ways of enjoying ourselves, like going to the bars. You can't do it. So instead, we made each of our rooms a different bar. And each different place had a theme. And it was like, you know, the best thing that we can do other than going to a bar was making our own. And it was like those little memories for me. Yeah, it was adorable. I've never really, because of my lifestyle, I've moved around a lot and I've never been able to gain friendship that meant something to me, because you just flatter away in different countries. And this is the first time I've been able to focus on friendship. When you have got pubs, when you've got bars open, you're able to escape. Yeah, and for me, I'm a little bit of a social butterfly. So if I'm ever feeling down, I'll just go to a pub, I'll go to a bar, and I'd spend my money on alcohol and basically have a great time. Whereas you can't do that. Instead, I've had to put a lot of trust and another way of trying to escape in a way. And instead of doing that by escaping and drinking, I've actually had to sit down and think, okay, I'm alone right now. what can I do? And I've been able to open up to people because I've had to open up to people. I live in a 10-bedroom house. I mean, if you can't communicate in a 10-bedroom house and you're stuck there for 24 hours a day, it's just not going to work out. So yeah, I've opened up a lot, and with that I've grown such a strong connection with people that I never would have. I think that for me is probably the biggest thing for me, was putting effort in growing connections rather than meeting as many people as I can, people that won't actually gain anything for me, and prioritizing people who will.
No, definitely. I think connectedness and speaking with other people is so important, and that's not been more prevalent than during this time when we've not had access to the normal ways that, like you say, they escape from their day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Going to pubs, going to restaurants, meeting with friends. People have been more isolated than ever before. So I think keeping connected is in any way you can is so important.
Yeah, and definitely around COVID, you realize who really means to you too. Like, not being able to see my grandma for absolute donkeys, and that made me realize, actually, I really appreciate the minute I get to hug my grandma. I really wish I had appreciated it before, but COVID, it's definitely put a lot of perspectives in place for me.
The theme for this episode is community matters, because the festive season can be a difficult time for many people. What do you do for Christmas? Do you have any unusual Christmas celebrations or traditions? Do you go home? What do you do for your Christmas period?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm half Thai, I grew up on Asian food. So when it came to a Christmas dinner, I don't like spuds. I don't like potatoes. So instead of potatoes, my grandma will always cook me a batch of rice. So I'll have rice, gravy, stuffing, all that good stuff. And that's my tradition for sure. Oh, and afterwards, if we have rice left over, I make this thing called a stuffing fried rice, where it's like an infusion of Asian and English combined. Fish sauce, soy sauce, with rice and stuffing and a bit of mincemeat.
What would you say you've done particularly this year that would you say is your biggest accomplishment that you're most proud of?
Yeah, because this year has been a whirlwind. There's been massive ups and downs for me. And with those ups and downs, I've learned a lot about myself. I think for the first lockdown, I kind of went into a very deep, dark hole that I felt like I could not get out of. And it was the first time that I actually considered about, maybe I do need some help here, because I can't obviously work things out on my own. And it was the first time that I actually started looking into counseling. And yeah, one thing I'm really proud of is that I've started on the get-go with counseling. I'm just having to wait. And I think this is what's really inspired me to do what I'm doing right now, is because I think mental health resources are so under-resourced. I'm having to wait around about 6 months until I can actually start getting a one-to-one. At least I'm in the books now. But for me, that was something that was a big shock. And I've had to, because of that, I've had to read a lot of books about it. I've been really interested in mental health and why people act the way they do. I've been listening to a lot of Eckhart Tolle, which he's this absolute amazing spiritual guru who talks a lot about present and being in the present moment, which is something I was not aware of at all. I thought that what you thought about yourself, what you think about, is how you live, and that's who you are, when in reality that's not. It's a completely different identity to who you are. It's opened up a lot of healing and growth in the way I think about people now. That is one thing that I'm very proud of this year.
I think you should be incredibly proud. Recognizing and seeking that help is so hard for so many people, and I think it's so important at this time of year. You mentioned the project you're doing at the moment. You're obviously dressed as an elf. What is the project about? Why are you dressed as an elf?
Simply raising awareness for mental health. The fact that I'm dressing up as an elf, it plucks people's lives. Like, what's she doing? And that's the start for me. Like I said, this year's been a big eye opener, and I just wanted to contribute into making a difference. And my friend Roxy was the one who introduced me to Lancashire Mind Challenge. She introduced me, and it's like she was dressing as an elf for 12 days. And I was like, I absolutely love that idea, because all I'm doing is dressing up as an elf, and going about my daily life and simply walking through the streets. I went to a mall today. I got a lot of attention, let me tell you, but by simply making a few people smile, and a few people did ask questions like, what are you dressed up for? I just said it's to raise awareness for mental health, and that simply triggered, and that started something, at least something. So that's why it's something so small that you can do, simply dressing up like a very silly thing. It makes people smile.
The project obviously is, like you say, one, to raise awareness, but also you are spreading happiness, and I'm sure for lots of people seeing you dressed as an elf, like it's just like, oh, that's so whimsical, it's so fun. I know when I saw you share the first post on your Instagram, and I think you were gardening or something for your one of your relatives, and I was like, I love that idea.
It's so good. It is amazing that, like, I've never done fundraising in my life before. This is my first time, and I have no clue what I'm doing. All I'm doing is dressing as an elf, posting it on social media, and sending them a link saying, if you like my content, if you like the fact that I've been able to take a picture with a reindeer. That was one of my my go-tos. Was I found somebody that had a reindeer around my area. I just gave him a text saying, like, hey, I'm dressed as an elf. I'm doing this for charity. Could I take a photo with one of your reindeers? And I'm posting that on social media, and saying, like, this is me. This is something silly that I'm doing. If you like it, please, if you want to, 2 or 3, 4 pounds. So yeah, all I'm doing is sharing silly images of me being an elf in weird situations. And if you want to donate because you like what you see, please donate. And the response I've had has been incredible. I'm on my 6th day now. My goal was to raise £100. I am already on £125, and it's 12 days. It's 12 days. And it was more than I could. I was like, oh, am I even gonna get £100? Like I said, I'm just a chick posting stuff on the story, and yeah, I've raised £125 for Lancashire Mind, and it's touched me a lot, because it's not just me doing stupid things. It's the fact that people have now, with the people that I know on Instagram, I've had a lot of people just message me saying that what I was doing was amazing, and that they've also had a tough time, and seeing something as silly as that has made them smile, and how can you not feel proud about that? And all I'm doing is dressing as an elf.
This year has been incredibly hard, and a bit of joy spreading and raising awareness, like you say. I'm surprised by how much there has been a theme throughout our podcasts this year about the importance of visibility and being seen for different communities. But I think particularly for mental health, because it's such an invisible, prevalent thing.
And I also think it's been like taboo. It's been a very taboo subject. I think society has made it such a topic that it's not to be said. It's not something that you can just talk about. It's private. It's a private topic, and that in itself, it's just contributed to a society where we feel so afraid and we keep things in. And this is my way of saying, don't. It's okay to feel sad, and it's okay to reach out. It's okay to talk about these things.
Just having those small conversations and challenging some of those stigmas that unfortunately still do exist is such a piece of work. And to have raised halfway through the challenge over £100 already is amazing. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. But yeah, it brings me to another point, is that I don't have a massive follower. I've got a pretty average life, and I've not done anything like this in my life before. All I've done is dress as an elf, I post it on my story. This is something that anybody can do.
Yeah.
You don't have to be special. You don't have to have millions of followers to do something that can change your community.
It's a very important link, I think, because in the very first podcast we ever did, which was all about activism, we talked about change, and one of our speakers, Aidan, said that change happens every day, and it's the small things in communities where change happens, and that's no more different than that. Where can people support the mental health project that you're doing, and sort of support Lancaster Mind ultimately? How can they donate to the cause?
Well, I've definitely shared the link on every single social media platform I have. So yeah, you can easily follow me, but I think the easiest way is just Googling Lancashire Mind. And when you go on their website, they got a big fat button that says donate.
For anyone who is struggling over the Christmas period, do you have a message for anyone listening at home?
Don't put so much pressure on it. I mean, it is just time passes. If you're feeling the worst ever, I think the biggest thing for me was knowing that time is a healer, and it will pass. It's just having to endure those moments, and with the whole scope of things, it's only such a small fraction of your time. And it's okay, get over that small time, and there's a brighter future ahead.
Where can people find you and see what you're up to?
I think the biggest one for me is my Instagram. I post a lot of stupid stuff there. So if you want to watch a stupid elf do silly things, and that might give you a smile, my Instagram is Natalya Disley.
Thank you very much for your time, Natalia. You are doing some amazing work, and I hope you reach more than double your goals.
Merry Christmas to all those at Salford Pride. Please, ears up, eyes forwards. Here's our fantastic landlady and managing director of our pop, the sensational Viva La Diva, aka John Hamilton.
Hello, it's me, Viva La Diva, from the heart of Manchester's Canal Street, and I'd just like to say thank you. Thank you to Salford Pride for continually supporting our LGBT community over the year of 2020. This has been a hard year for all of us, but you know what? We still stand together and we still move forward. 2021 will be a new year and a fresh year that we can still stand up, be proud and be loud. Thank you.
Hi, Husk. Thank you for joining us on Pride Matters. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you. I'm okay. Husk, we're going to start by talking about 2020. 2020 has obviously been a bit of a weird year, but I think it's really important that we recognise some of the amazing things that people have done despite the challenges that 2020 has given us. So what are some of your highlights from the past year?
When you think about it, like 2020 has been one of those years where I think a lot of people think, I've not done that much, when actually a lot of people have done a lot, especially with what we've been able to do. But obviously I work in music, so it's been quite difficult for me to kind of try and make things happen in the same way. But I did actually manage to release 2 brand new singles and a cassette. And they did performed okay, so I guess I'm going to go with that.
A cassette is quite an alternative choice. Why did you decide to release a cassette?
I think like vinyl has been a thing for a long time, and that's kind of been considered the retro thing, and people buy it just to have it. But I think more and more as kind of the 90s retro kind of thing comes in, people are really interested in cassettes, and a lot of people have said to me when they bought them they've not actually got anywhere to play it, and I don't know what to say to them because neither had I. Like I had to borrow a cassette player from someone that I know so that I could test that it worked. It does work, in case you're wondering. It is listenable, but I think, yeah, it just looks good on your shelf. I think, yeah, look at this, it's really cool. So, yeah.
Having something physical is that sort of different aspect, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody likes to have that physical as well. I know, like, when I was like growing up, I would like, I'm a huge fan of Girls Aloud, and whenever they released a new single, on my way home from school, I'd like nip in Ulster and go and get the new single, and it was really exciting. And like that physical, I think that you don't get that with things like Spotify. So yeah, I think releasing that physical, it's definitely still something that people enjoy, something that I really like anyway.
The first time I ever I ever bought music, it was on a CD. It was a I think it was a Kylie Minogue CD.
Yeah.
So it's just a bit of a throwback, isn't it? I think it's just nice, and it's like, oh yeah, you've got something. Then it's like there to look at.
Yeah, it's really nice as well. Like a lot of people, I've done some competitions as well. I did like a little advent thing, and like people like it when I sign it, but obviously you can't sign anything that's like, you know, digital, streaming. Yeah. You can't do that. So yeah, so it's nice when people do that. So maybe they can sell that on eBay in a few years when I'm really successful.
Signed Husk piece of memorabilia. Why not? So other than your music and that side of things, is there anything particularly that you would say you were proud of over the past year that you've accomplished?
I started volunteering with Salford Pride. So yeah, I'm one of the committee members now. So I work on some of the marketing elements. So all the little clips of this video, I've probably made them, put them on the social media, that kind of thing. But that's been really fun. It's nice to kind of get involved in the community in that kind of way. And it's nice as a trans person to kind of be able to put my voice into certain things and be able to kind of offer that, you know, insight that I obviously have from being in that side of the community. So yeah, I'm really, really proud of that this year. And obviously I've met some really nice people, which yeah, it's nice. It's nice.
I think just before you joined Salford Pride, I think I saw you at the We Are 70% protests performing alongside other trans and non-binary artists as well. Is that something that's really important to you?
Yeah, so that was something that I actually did in 2020. I think one of the things like a lot of artists have experienced is, you know, at the same time we've not had the same things going on, and it's been quite difficult for us, but then we've had the chance to kind of slow down a little bit and reflect on what we want to do. And with my music, you know, sometimes I send it out to people and they're kind of like, we really like the music, but we don't get why your voice sounds like that, which is, it sounds like this because I'm trans, like that is the reason it sounds like this. Or they'll say things like, oh, it doesn't fit with what we want to do. These people won't be interested in it, or they're like really, really focused on the queer element, which is fine. That's great. You know, I'm really proud of being a queer trans musician, but it sometimes takes away from what I'm doing. So I was kind of trying to balance it between, you know, trying to have this integrity as a musician, and then trying to balance it with this transness that people aren't necessarily interested in, or think they're not interested in, or can, you know, they create barriers themselves against, you know, I'm not going to be interested in that because that's trans, rather than I'm going to be interested in that because that's, you know, synth pop, that's disco, whatever. And I thought to myself, I'm not really going to kind of convert people who aren't kind of interested in that, even though if they've already put that barrier in their mind saying I'm not going to be interested in this, or my listeners aren't going to be interested in this, I might as well lean into it whole hog, and the people that are interested in it and the people that need to see that representation, because there aren't a lot of transmasculine performers that do get opportunities, and you know, I often do get booked for things as the transmasculine representation, which is, you know, that's great for me. It means that I get work, and, you know, at least there is something there. But I kind of felt that responsibility. You know, my music is my space. I'm going to go into it, you know, as authentic as I want to be, and with that comes a kind of new romantic style that I've added, and that's kind of my femininity, the transness and the queerness that I want to put out there. Yeah, it's kind of like in your face queerness, which is, yeah, I'm really. That's one of the great things of 2020, I guess, is just that time to reflect, and then kind of just to go with what you want. You know, I think it made a lot of people realize that. You know, life is short and things might change, and yeah, you've kind of just got to do what you want to do.
One of the big projects that we did just after you joined the Salford Pride Committee was we did a specific event for the Trans Day of Remembrance. You were obviously performed yourself as well as doing the Salford Pride work behind the scenes. How was that project?
when we started talking about it, and we obviously knew we wanted to do something for Tidor, we obviously wanted to address how difficult it is, and we didn't want to shy away from saying, you know, trans people get murdered just for being trans, and this is, you know, not just a problem in you know, another country somewhere. It is a problem in the UK. Transphobia is one of those things that we need to address and we need to look at, but at the same time we didn't want it to be like kind of trauma porn, which happens a lot with trans people, where, you know, we constantly talk about the bad stuff that happens to us and how difficult it is to be trans, but actually there's a lot of really amazing things about being trans, and I love it. I'm really glad that I was born trans. I'm supposed to be this way. So it was kind of about showing that empowerment to people and showing people that trans people are strong, we are resilient, and then empowering other trans people to also, you know, feel that strength that we have together. So that was really, really important that we did that. It was a really, really important event, and I'm proud that we did it.
The fact that it was led and done wholly by a trans and non-binary artists and performers was so special as well. Like, I think it made it really more poignant.
Really nice as well, because it was trans and non-binary people, gender expansive, like across the board. It wasn't just like six kind of white drag queens. It was, you know, it was different identities, which is really, really important. That's really important for people outside of the trans community to kind of see that we are everywhere and we are everyone. So that was really, really nice.
Normally, I think trans identities are pretty limited to trans women, trans men. So it's nice to, like you say, find out that there are actually a lot more roles in that sort of gender variant bracket.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of the importance of giving trans people that voice. So that's why we decided it was going to be, you know, 100% trans artists, and it was going to be trans people talking about their experience, and trans people allowed to give their voice to their own experience, which doesn't happen a lot of the time. It's the kind of cis narrative that we've got to fit into. So that's why it's so important that you give trans people a voice, because our story isn't told properly unless we're kind of telling it ourselves, which I think is true of a lot of other groups. You know, we did the Black History Month project, and that was really important that we let Black people tell their own story, because as much as a white person I can empathize and sympathize and support, you know, as much as I can, there's no way that I'm ever going to tell that story properly, and that's why it's so important that we have people of those groups kind of telling their story. And when you give oppressed groups that voice, that's the empowerment. Without the kind of empowerment in that voice, you know, there's going to be no liberation.
Community, I think, is an important aspect, and that's what this episode of the podcast is all about. How do you spend the festive season? Do you have any traditions or anything that you get up to keep connected over what can be a difficult time?
Yeah, so I'm incredibly lucky that I've got a long-term partner who is actually our 9-year anniversary, which is like, it's exactly a week before Christmas that we have our 9-year anniversary. So naturally, a lot of our traditions are kind of, you know, around Christmas anyway, because that's when we kind of first got together. So I'm lucky in that sense, because you know, they're obviously queer, so we've kind of got that bond together, and no matter where we are. So my family, for example, they're very kind of heteronormative, and, you know, don't necessarily understand certain things about being trans. And there was a time at the beginning where they didn't really want to talk about it, and it was very difficult to be around them, and it was very difficult for them to be around me. So we kind of didn't speak for a long time, but I had my partner there, so I wasn't alone. So that kind of helped with that. But we've got loads of traditions that we have together, and there's one that I kind of took from my dad. So every, like at Christmas Eve, you go to bed, and then my Santa would come in. It was my dad, obviously, but Santa would come in, and he put a little present at the bottom of your bed. And obviously that happened when I was a young child, but that's something that me and my partner kind of do now. So we're like, obviously we stay in the same bed, but it's really funny trying to watch us like sneaking that present in. So I'm like waiting for us to go to sleep, and then she's waiting for me to go to sleep, and then it's kind of like just putting it there. So that's something that we do together.
This year is obviously going to be very different, because you might not be able to go to the usual places and do the usual things that you do. So do you have any alternative plans in a sort of COVID-related Christmas?
Yeah, so I'm not going to be able to see my family at all this year. So we actually live with a couple of members of my partner's family. So we kind of got that little bit of family in there, but it is going to be quite difficult to kind of do the normal things that we do. But with my family, I'm not going to see them at all, but I've planned like a little kind of like military mission to do like a gift exchange with them. So they're gonna come up to Manchester, and then we're gonna like get a coffee and like social distance, and then kind of it's going to look like a drug deal at the end of the day. Like it's 100% going to look that, like in Piccadilly Gardens, like, you know, giving each other these parcels. Like, yeah, leaving a little parcel on like the bench, and then I'll pick up another one. So it can 100% just look like, you know, we're doing something hugely illegal. Yeah, so that's the only thing really. Because I think a lot of the time at Christmas, I'm kind of, you know, very introverted with it anyway. So for me, it's not that different. I think the only different thing is I would normally be doing like Christmas performances and like New Year performances, which are obviously not happening this year. So that's the only thing so I'm not feeling particularly Christmassy, because it's kind of, you know, the traditional things that get me in the mood, and you kind of do those festive things where you go and see people, and yeah, they're not kind of not happening. But I'm trying to think about it like it's for the greater good, you know. We have to kind of isolate, and we have to kind of keep that distance, and we have to kind of not create that exposure. But yeah, I think, yeah, I'm just trying to think about it as the greater good kind of thing. Some of my family work for the NHS, and then I'm obviously saying, like, you know, personally, my job is like performance. So those things are kind of, they're very under pressure. So I'm just trying to think about it in that way, you know. So it might be, you know, I might just have to have Christmas Day on Zoom with you know, my loved ones. And there's some of my queer family who I haven't seen in a long time as well, you know, in a good 9 months. And that obviously I normally catch up with them, you know, over Prides or different performances where I'd, you know, travel around and kind of see the people that I would normally see and haven't been able to see them this year. And I think you kind of feel that a little bit more at this time of year as well, because obviously you're thinking about, you know, you're reflecting on the year and thinking about your loved ones in a you know, a really kind of emotional sense. And yeah, so I think I'm just trying to think about it in that way. Like, you know, I'll see them on Zoom and we'll do that kind of thing. But, you know, hopefully next year things will be better. I'll be able to kind of get back to performing. I'll be able to get back to, you know, just go and see my family for the day or whatever, because they don't live that far away either. That's about an hour away outside of Manchester.
Loneliness and sort of acceptance is not just a thing within our community. Lots of people are going to feel lonely, isolated at this festive period, because they can't go and see their family, they can't do the things they do. So, you know, trying to stay connected in the ways, like you say, alternatively online, call people.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually met with James, who we were talking about, who did the T-Door event. And so they've just moved to Manchester quite recently, and they don't really know a lot of people here. And they were saying to me, look, do you want to like meet up? We'll go for a coffee and whatever. But obviously, you know, Manchester is very famous for its rain. And we had to kind of just sit outside with the coffee, like with the rain like on us, like for, you know, just because like there was like no other way that we could kind of connect, you know. So it was still worth it. But yeah, I think 2020 has definitely been interesting and made us do things that we probably wouldn't have done before.
I grew up in Wales and I thought it rained a lot in Wales, but then I moved to Manchester and found out that somehow it rains even more in Manchester.
Yeah, it's so true. Like people think it's just like a stereotype and it mustn't be true, but it genuinely is true of Manchester. Like,
because Christmas can be difficult, the holiday period can be difficult for so many people. What would you like to say, Husk, to anyone at home that might be spending the festive season alone, or might be stressed or worried because they're going to see family briefly? Is there anything that you would like to say to those people?
Yeah, so I think the people who are kind of worried about going and seeing their loved ones, first of all, think about whether or not it's entirely necessary, whether you need to. And I totally understand if you do need to. That's not a kind of judgment of you moving, you know, whatever. But obviously just make sure that that's 100% what you need to do. And then second of all, you need to forgive yourself, because at the end of the day, we are only human. And human connection is, you know, extremely important to our well-being. And then anyone alone, just do the small things that make you feel good. Like I'm saying, obviously I'm lucky enough to have my partner, but there's been times where, you know, particularly throughout kind of like my medical transition, where I was alone, and that, you know, it wasn't possible for them to be with me. And like I say, my family weren't part of that kind of process. So I was actually alone. So I kind of did the small things that made me feel good. You know, I watched kind of like, you know, really bad movies, or just put like Girls Aloud DVD on and stuff like that. But yeah, do those things that make you feel good. Even if it's just like, you know, 10 minutes where you're just feeling a little bit better, it's still worth it.
I think, you know, you can still do lots of the traditions, even if you are spending Christmas alone. Like, you can still do those little traditions that will make you feel that little bit more sentimental, like, you know, put on Polar Express, have a cup of hot chocolate,
Absolutely.
whatever makes you happy, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, you know, just grab your favorite snacks, and like don't feel kind of shy to call people as well, because like I know personally, like I'd kind of feel like, you know, or you know, they're going to be busy, so they don't want to talk to me. But actually, I think all our loved ones this year are going to be very excited to hear from us, especially on Christmas Day, and they're going to be missing you as much as you're missing them. So just kind of, make sure you reach out.
Reach out and check in with people, I think is such an important message. Thank you so much, Husk, for joining us, like I say, and giving your time today. Before you go, where can people find out about some of the work and projects you work on with your music and so on? Keep up to date with what you're up to.
Yeah, so I've actually got loads of new stuff coming in the new year. And if you're into kind of like queer pop, like disco-y, it's really cool. Then if you search Husk Noise, then you'll find me. It's on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that kind of stuff.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Pride Matters. If you'd like to be involved in the next episode, just tweet using the hashtag Pride Matters Podcast with a question or topic you'd like us to discuss. Sadly, that's it for this month's episode, but we release a new episode of Pride Matters every month, so be sure to tune in wherever you listen to your podcasts, or subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure to click the bell for notifications to keep up to date with our fight for equality. This has been Pride Matters, the podcast where your voice matters.